Welcome to our explainer. Today, we're diving into a really dramatic story. It's about a family, a shocking revelation, and a cosmic conflict that really makes you think about the whole nature of choice.
So, let's set the scene. You've got the first man and woman, Adam and Eve, and they're facing this heartbreaking situation. They've been trying to pass down these sacred truths from God to their children, but the kids, well, they're just not buying it.
You see, the children were skeptical. They wanted their own proof, their own sign from heaven. They didn't want to just take their parents' word for it. And this craving for a personal sign, it created a huge opening. And just out of sight, a powerful being saw the perfect chance to make a move.
And then, bam, a majestic figure appears right in front of the whole family, just surrounded in what the source calls a brilliant and transcendent glory. He looks the part, for sure, and he's got the big announcement they've all been waiting for.
Now this is where it gets really clever. His claim is fascinating. He doesn't say, "I'm a messenger." He says, "Hey, I'm a son of God, just like the others." It's a classic power move, right? He's putting himself on equal footing, which makes his word seem just as valid as any other divine message they might have heard. It's instantly credible.
So then he turns and points right at the parents, at Adam and Eve. And in this really commanding voice, he gives a direct order to their children.
Just 3 words. And with those 3 words, he completely undermines everything Adam and Eve had ever taught them. So who is this guy, this angelic imposter?
Well, Adam and Eve knew. They recognized him in an instant. This wasn't some messenger of truth. This was their ancient enemy, the one who led a rebellion way back when, Lucifer.
And here's the kicker. Even though their parents are right there, warning them, telling them exactly who this is, their kids were just completely captivated. They were totally awestruck. I mean, this was it. This was the personal sign they'd been waiting for, and they just fully embraced it.
And the scripture just sums it all up with this incredibly stark and tragic line. In their desperation for their own sign, they fell for a masterclass in deception, and their family was just torn apart.
This just leads to the biggest question of the whole story, right? Why? Why would God let this happen? Why would he let this adversary come in and completely sabotage these faithful parents?
Well, according to the source material, the answer isn't found in that moment. To understand it, we actually have to go way, way back to a conflict that started long before Earth was even created.
So, this war in heaven, it wasn't a war with weapons. It was a war of ideas, of testimonies. It happened in what's called a pre-existence, before any of us were born. And the big debate was about the plan for our salvation. Lucifer was cast out, not because God forced him out, but because the majority of spirits chose to reject his plan. And guess what? That same war for our allegiance, it's still going on, right here, right now. And on this new battlefield, Earth, the goals for each side are super clear. On one side, you have Jehovah, whose goal is to help along this plan that's all based on our voluntary choice. And on the other side, you've got Satan, who is dead set on wrecking that plan by proving that, hey, if you give people a choice, they'll choose to follow him over God. So that brings us back to the why. Why is this competition, this deception even allowed? Well, the source talks about a kind of cosmic constitution, a set of rules of engagement for this whole conflict.
Okay, this is the whole key right here. For our choice to be real, to actually mean something, there has to be a real opposition. God's entire plan hinges on us choosing to be good. He's not going to force Lucifer to be good, and he's not going to force us either. That means the plan can't just win by getting rid of the bad guy. It has to succeed in spite of the opposition. That is the only way the choice is genuine.
In this story, it's such a perfect example of a pattern that you see over and over again in the scriptures. What happened to Adam and Eve's kids wasn't some one-time thing, it was just the beginning.
The source points out that pretty much whenever God sends a new message to the world through a prophet, you can bet that a deceptive countermessage from Lucifer is going to follow pretty close behind. And he often shows up as an angel of light, which is so clever because he's mimicking the very thing people are looking for, making the fake almost impossible to tell from the real thing. So all of this brings us right back to Adam and Eve's children and the real reason behind this whole cosmic setup.
The whole system, letting an adversary compete, allowing for deception, refusing to use force, all of it, every last bit exists to protect one single fundamental principle, giving every single one of us the chance to make a real, honest-to-goodness, voluntary choice.
So that heartbreaking story about Adam and Eve's family, as awful as it was really just a warm-up act. It was the first little skirmish in what the source calls a 6,000-year war. It was a preview of the kinds of choices all of us were going to have to face.
So, the story leaves us with this really deep question to think about. If a real choice requires a real opposition, and if truth is always going to be challenged by a very convincing counterfeit, what does that say about our own beliefs? And what is the ultimate test of faith?